The halfway point of the Chamber of Secrets is a pivotal moment in Harry's school year, as two key events take place. First, there's yet another critical attack at the school, which cements Harry as the primary suspect in the eyes of all of the students. Then, right after this, the trio's Polyjuice potion plan, which they had been working on for months, doesn't pan out when they discover that Draco Malfoy isn't the heir of Slytherin and he has no information on who is. But what if I told you that these two key moments in the story just don't add up from book to film? The movie chose to swap lines, remove key scenes, and fabricate plot elements that leave a shallow version of the book's original story. Which is why today, I'm gonna go through these two crucial scenes in the Chamber of Secrets and peel back the curtain on every change the movie made to these moments from the book. And by the end of this video, I wanna know from you which fun fact, omission, or change made the biggest impact on the overall story. My name is Gibby, and welcome back to episode 27 of Movies vs. Manuscripts, Harry Potter Edition. This is the show where I take your favorite wizarding franchise and compare it to the book scene by scene, page by page, to find all the differences along the way. Like I said, today we're about halfway through the movie as our trio enjoys their Christmas break at Hogwarts with Draco and his goons. We'll see how the movie removed some critical characters and rewrote key plot points to help fit the film narrative. But first, shout out to this commenter from a previous episode. Each week, I highlight one of the top comments from a past video, so be sure to share your thoughts down below when you're done watching. Per usual, I'll cover all the changes across the four major categories of characters, timeline, location, and plot. And as always, let's kick things off by refreshing our memory on what happens during these scenes in the movie. So, picking up from where we left off last week, the movie transitions to Harry, Ron, and Hermione studying together in a part of the library with a bunch of other students around them. Harry looks around and notices people staring at him and whispering to each other, and obviously they're still freaked out by his prior Parseltongue episode. He decides that he's had enough and tells his friends that he'll meet them later in the common room, and then he gets up and leaves. However, right after leaving, as he's walking through the Hogwarts corridors, he hears the strange voice in the walls once again. Following it until it stops, he finds Justin Finch-Fletchley and Sir Nicholas both petrified as another attack has just occurred. Almost right after finding the bodies, Harry gets caught by Filch, who alerts Professor McGonagall. McGonagall then comes and takes Harry to Dumbledore's office, where Harry waits for the headmaster. While he waits, he talks to the Sorting Hat, who says that he still thinks Harry would have been good in Slytherin, but Harry says that it's wrong. Then Harry looks over and sees a bird looking like it's really sick, and then it bursts into flames, leaving a pile of ashes behind. Right at this moment, Dumbledore walks up to Harry, who tells him that his bird just exploded, but Dumbledore assures Harry that Fawkes is a phoenix, and he'll be reborn in the ashes. And just as described, Harry sees a baby bird pop its head out of the filth. Before Dumbledore can continue talking to Harry, Hagrid bursts into the office while holding a dead rooster, and he shouts out that Harry didn't do anything and that he's willing to vouch for him in front of the Ministry of Magic if he has to. Dumbledore cuts Hagrid off in his rambling and assures him that he doesn't think Harry did anything wrong. Then, after Hagrid leaves, Dumbledore asks Harry if there's anything he'd like to tell him, but Harry says that there isn't. And then the movie cuts to Christmas dinner. We see Harry, Ron, and Hermione eating apart from all of the other students as Hermione informs the boys that the potion is ready and she has a plan. After telling them what to do, we see them take some treats and use them to essentially drug Crabbe and Goyle and take some of their hair. They then run up to the girls' bathroom where the potion is, and Hermione prepares their concoctions. They all insert the hair from their respective victims and drink the potion, and one by one they each start to transform, but Hermione, who ran into a bathroom stall, says that they should go without her. Seeing as time is running out, the boys go on ahead and run into Percy in the halls, but before they can get in trouble, Draco comes up and takes him away from Percy towards the Slytherin common room. They then talk with Draco, who says multiple things like Dumbledore's the worst thing to ever happen to the school, that he doesn't know who the heir of Slytherin is, and that the last time it happened, a mudblood dies, and he hopes this time it's Granger. On this final note, the boys get upset and then realize that they're turning back into their normal bodies again, and they run off. We then see them coming back into Moaning Myrtle's bathroom, and the last part of the scene is them opening Hermione's bathroom stall door to see that she has turned into a cat, since the hair she got wasn't human hair after all. And that is where scenes end for this week. I know that was a lot, and with a lot of screen time, we get a lot of changes. So let's waste no time and dive right into our first three categories of characters, timeline, and location. First up for characters, we're missing a handful of people who are integral to the plot in the book. The movie removed Peeves, Hannah Abbott, Ernie Macmillan, and Penelope Clearwater. Of course, we're all familiar with Peeves, who is heavily involved in Harry's life at school, but our other three missing characters aren't as well known to us. Hannah Abbott and Ernie Macmillan are two Hufflepuff students, and we do see them in this scene of the movie as they're studying in the library when Harry leaves. However, in the book, as we'll learn in the plot changes, Ernie does quite a bit of talking and is key in spreading the lie that Harry is the heir of Slytherin. As for Penelope Clearwater, we actually don't know it's her in this part of the book, as we simply read that Ron and Harry ran into a Ravenclaw girl as they were trying to find the Slytherin common room. But later on in the story, we learn that this girl was Penelope Clearwater, Percy Weasley's secret girlfriend. But again, we'll get to her involvement more during the plot changes. Now moving on to timeline, we only have the difference that the first part of these scenes would have been during the day. In the book, we read that Harry ran into Justin Finch-Fletchley and Sir Nicholas while classes were taking place. This plays into some of our missing characters as well, and the fact that the whole school thought that Harry was at fault for these attacks, as he gets caught in broad daylight next to the victims. Other than this small time change, however, the overall timeline in the movie is accurate, as the Polyjuice potion plan does take place during Christmas break. And lastly, when looking at location, things are pretty much the same. I feel like every week I say that the Gryffindor common room is missing, which it is again this week, but other than that, there aren't any major errors or deviations when it comes to the Hogwarts locations. Now, before I get into the plot changes, I just want to remind you that I can't go line by line through the book and point out every word choice that was changed for the movie. If I did that, we'd all be here for hours. So I'll do my best to point out line swaps that impact the plot or character development, but if you're wanting to relive the story for yourself, I'd highly encourage you to check out the audiobooks. You can claim your free trial of Audible using my link in the description, which comes with one free audiobook of your choice, so you can claim the Chamber of Secrets and follow along with me each week as I do this series. That being said, let's get into the plot changes. Once again this week, we aren't starting fresh with a new chapter, but rather picking things up halfway through the Dueling Club chapter which we covered last week. The first change we run into because of this is the setup for these scenes. In the movie, we fade from the previous scene to seeing our trio and other students studying in the library, but in the book, they're never actually at this location together. In fact, they aren't even studying when this happens. Here's what really happens in the book. You see, after the events of the Dueling Club, we read about how Harry laid in bed all night thinking about the Parseltongue incident and how Justin Finch-Fletchley must have the wrong idea about him now. Harry then decides that the next day in herbology, which the Gryffindors shared with the Hufflepuffs, he'd go up to Justin and clear up this misunderstanding. However, the book skips to the following day and their herbology class is canceled due to inclement weather. We read that Professor Sprout had to fit the mandrakes with socks and scarves, and she didn't trust anyone else to do it, especially since the fate of the petrified victims relied on the mandrakes surviving the winter. This meant that Harry wouldn't see Justin, and so he just paced around the common room worrying about it all morning, until Hermione told him to just go find Justin if it meant that much to him. So Harry did just that and left the Gryffindor Tower to search for Justin, while Ron and Hermione stayed back and enjoyed their time off class by playing wizard's chess, which Ron always won, by the way. And that leads us into our next change, which is one of the largest omissions from these scenes, and that is Harry overhearing the Hufflepuffs talking about him. After heading down to the library, he spotted a group of Hufflepuffs talking at a table together and decided to go up to them because they'd probably know where Justin is. But as he approached, he overheard his name and hid behind some bookshelves to eavesdrop on what they were saying about him. One of the boys was taking the lead in the conversation, and that boy would be none other than Ernie Macmillan, one of the most annoying students in Hufflepuff. Harry listened as Ernie told the others that Harry must be the heir of Slytherin, and how he had advised Justin to stay in the Hufflepuff dorms all day and lie low. In Ernie's eyes, Harry had marked Justin as his next victim, so it was best for him to keep a low profile. One of the other Hufflepuffs, Hannah Abbott, then said that Harry always seemed so nice and asked if he really could be the heir of Slytherin, and Ernie said only dark wizards can talk to snakes. Then he went on to say that perhaps Voldemort tried to kill Harry because he knew Harry would grow up to be a more powerful dark wizard than him, and Voldemort didn't want the competition. Not being able to take it anymore as he listened, Harry cleared his throat and stepped out from behind the books to the shock of all the Hufflepuffs who were now wide-eyed staring at him. Harry then asked them if they knew where Justin was, but none of them gave an answer. Ernie, having the biggest mouth of them all, confronted Harry about the Parseltongue incident despite Harry trying to explain himself. Then, after Ernie told Harry that he is a pureblood, and Harry told him that he didn't care, Harry stormed off out of the library. And don't worry, that's not the last we'll be seeing of Ernie today. But before we see him again, we have a couple other changes. Although we do see Hagrid in the movie later on when Harry goes to Dumbledore's office, we're missing the moment with him in the halls as Harry exits the library. We read that Harry bumped into him as he stormed off, angry at what he had overheard Ernie saying to the other students. Hagrid was holding a dead rooster just like what we see in the movie, but in the book, we learn why. He tells Harry that he was going to see Dumbledore about an issue with his roosters being killed, so he could get permission to put a charm around the chicken coop. And then after asking Harry what's wrong, Harry told him it's nothing and that he needed to get to Transfiguration class next. And after that brief interaction, Harry walked off to get his books for his next class. Now, before moving on, I want to point out that a lot of these seemingly unimportant moments are actually crucial details to the plot. The roosters dying is no accident, and it's not just some fox or bugbear doing it as Hagrid suggests. I won't get into all of it now because we'll cover it later in the story, but this detail is something that the movie glosses over as we simply see Hagrid holding a rooster when he bursts into Dumbledore's office. And we're just left thinking, oh, it's just Hagrid doing Hagrid things. But in the end, these dead roosters hold a lot more meaning than the movie lets on. But anyway, to get back to our changes, we now come to the moment of Harry running into the next petrified victims, Justin Finn-Fletchley and Nearly Headless Nick. This is another moment which is changed completely from the original book version. Pretty much the only similarity is the fact that Harry finds the victims. But here's what really happens in the book. After Harry left Hagrid, he continued down the halls, still upset by what he had heard Ernie saying about him, and because he was so distracted by this, he actually tripped over Justin's body, which was laying in the middle of the hall. Then, as he got up, he looked and saw Sir Nicholas floating there as well. Another change is that Harry never saw spiders crawling out of the castle. I get why they showed this again in the movie to reaffirm this narrative of the spiders, but so far in the book, they've only seen the spiders once. The next change regarding this moment is the fact that Filch isn't the one who finds Harry. After Harry found the bodies, he struggled to decide what to do. He didn't want to just leave the bodies there, but if he got caught there, then people would blame him for the attack. However, before he could decide, a door swung open with a loud bang, and out came probably the worst person to catch you doing something wrong: Peeves. The poltergeist, seeing Harry next to the bodies, shouted, "Attack! Attack!" as loud as he could, and quickly the surrounding classrooms emptied with students. Remember, this happened during daytime in the book and classes were taking place still. McGonagall, who was teaching one of the classes, came running and saw Harry in this precarious position, and after setting off a loud bang with her wand, she instructed all of the students to return to their classrooms. But no sooner had everyone cleared out of the hall than Ernie Macmillan came sprinting into view, panting, and then pointed at Harry and declared, "Caught in the act." McGonagall then told Ernie to stop talking and gave him the task of wafting Sir Nicholas out of the hallway with a large fan. After Justin's body was taken to the hospital wing, McGonagall took Harry with her to Dumbledore's office. And now we're back to what we see in the movie. To wrap up the first half of our scenes, we only have one change regarding Harry's time in Dumbledore's office. In contrast to the moment we just discussed, this scene is actually pretty accurate and got nearly everything right regarding Harry and Dumbledore's interaction. The only change actually comes before Dumbledore appears. Although a small detail, the movie changes the way that the sorting hat works. In the book, Harry puts on the hat and talks to it, whereas in the movie, he just talks to it while it sits high up on its stand. The conversation he has with the hat is pretty much the same, but it's just the fact of how he has the conversation that's different. And on that note, we can move on to the second half of today's analysis as we witness Ron, Harry, and Hermione attempt to put into action their Polyjuice potion plan. First up, we have their Christmas dinner, but there's a few details we don't get because of this abrupt scene change. First, in the book, we read that Fred and George were going around telling people to make way for the heir of Slytherin as Harry would walk by with them. This upset Percy and Ginny a lot, but Harry was glad that at least someone else thought it was a ludicrous idea that he was the heir of Slytherin. The second thing we read is that after the Justin/Nick attack, students were in a rush to leave for Christmas break, leaving the castle almost entirely empty aside from the Weasleys, Hermione and Harry, and Malfoy and his goons. Of course, there were a handful of other students there, but not nearly as many as what we see eating in the Great Hall during this scene. And third, on Christmas morning, Hermione came into the boys' dorm and told them the potion was ready, and she brought them their Christmas gifts. Then Hedwig brought a package to Harry, which was from the Dursleys, who told him to find out if they'd let Harry stay at the castle over the summer as well. And now, after this extra information and build-up, we come to the Christmas dinner. Just like in the movie, Hermione gives Ron and Harry 2 chocolate cakes to give to Crabbe and Goyle, but unlike the movie, they don't discuss their plans in the Great Hall. After they've eaten, Hermione dragged the boys out of the hall to go over their secret plans. Reluctantly, the boys agreed as they weren't keen on drugging and stealing from Crabbe and Goyle, and then after asking whose hair Hermione was going to get, she told him she already got Millicent Bulstrode's after their wrestling match during the dueling club. And after this, Hermione went to wait in the bathroom as Ron and Harry executed their plan, just like what we see in the movie. Next, we have a small change regarding the potion itself, as we read in the book that when Ron and Harry went to meet Hermione, a thick black smoke filled the bathroom, and they could hardly see anything. Obviously, in the movie, the potion is a lot more tame than that. Another small detail that has changed is the fact that in the movie, they've already changed into Crabbe and Goyle's clothes. Which, by the way, does that mean they undressed Crabbe and Goyle after they drugged them? Gross. In the book, they only take their shoes, but their Slytherin robes are provided by Hermione, who had already gotten some larger sets for them earlier. Next, they actually went into separate stalls to drink the potion. Remember, the potion was brewed inside a stall for further privacy, just in case someone would come into the bathroom. And since they wouldn't be able to all fit in one stall once they grew to the sizes of Crabbe, Goyle, and Bulstrode, they each took their respective stalls for their transformations. In the movie, they use the pretense of them feeling sick as to why they separate, but this book version makes a bit more sense, and it explains why Harry and Ron didn't see what happened to Hermione until after. Now we have one more small change before getting to some of the bigger deviations with this secret mission, and that is the fact that Harry actually removed his glasses after he transformed. We specifically read that Harry couldn't see out of them because Goyle doesn't need glasses. And this makes sense for the movie as well because, as many fans know, the line of Draco saying, "I didn't know you could read," to Goyle was actually an improvisation on the part of Tom Felton. But in the book, Harry didn't keep the glasses on at all, so Draco never saw him wearing them. And now that we've covered all the changes inside the bathroom, let's follow Ron and Harry as they go out to find the Slytherin dorms. This is just a side note for the book and movie, but you're telling me that you had a month to plan this mission and you never once thought to figure out where the Slytherin common room was? For how well Hermione had thought through this plan, I'm surprised she forgot that detail. In the book, we read that they had planned on following a fellow Slytherin student into the common room, but they must not have factored in that most students were gone during Christmas break. Anyway, that being said, the first change is the fact that Percy isn't the first person they run into. They actually run into a girl who was heading away from the dungeons, and they just assumed she was a Slytherin. After asking her where the common room was, she told them that she isn't a Slytherin but a Ravenclaw, and walked off. Now you understand a bit more of why they ran into Percy in this part of the castle, because he was on a secret date in the dungeons with Penelope, who's the girl that they just ran into. Shortly after Penelope left, they ran into Percy and have an interaction very similar to what we see in the movie. Then, just like in the movie, Draco comes up and takes them to the common room. Draco also makes note of Percy being in the dungeons by saying he's noticed Percy sneaking around a lot lately. But he simply attributes this to the fact that Percy probably wants to be the one to find the Chamber of Secrets and save the school. Anyway, moving on to our next change, we finally made it into the Slytherin common room. And the first difference is the fact that Draco shows Harry and Ron a paper that his father sent him. The article he pointed out to them wrote about how Arthur Weasley was fined 50 galleons for the flying car situation. After forcing a laugh to not blow their cover, Draco went on about how horrible the Weasleys are. Another detail of the conversation that is missing from the movie is the fact that Draco lets it slip that his own home had been raided by the Ministry recently, but they didn't find anything. He then tells the fake Crabbe and Goyle that his father hid all of their dark magical items in the floor of their drawing room, so the Ministry will never find it. But little does he know that he revealed this to Ron and Harry, and it'll come back to bite him later in the story. And finally, the last small detail from the conversation that wasn't included in the movie is that Draco mentions the last time the chamber was opened, the culprit was expelled and probably put in Azkaban. This is the first mention of Azkaban we have in the entire series, and even Harry asks what it is. Thankfully, Goyle was pretty stupid, and so Draco doesn't think much of it, but he reminds the fake Goyle that Azkaban is a wizard prison. Then, after this, Harry and Ron begin transforming back to their normal selves, and they run out of the common room. The remainder of this scene in the movie with the boys finding Hermione as a cat is the same as the book, so no changes there. And so that means that we're all done with the differences for this week. So now that you've heard them all, what do you think the most impactful change was? Would you like to have seen Ernie included in these scenes? Let me know in the comments below. As always, be sure to like and subscribe and check out the series playlist to catch up on any episodes you might have missed so far. Have a great week, and I'll see you in the next episode.